House Lieutenant General Mark Hertling, our military analyst and a former Army commanding general. Admiral John Kirby is here, who also served as spokesperson for the State Department. And Melissa Bryant is the director of IAVA, an organization that seeks to empower veterans. Welcome to all of you. General Hertling, I want to start with you because I reached out to you in doing this story for your help, and I mentioned these waivers to you, and you said you definitely wanted to talk about them. So
I do.
Here's your opportunity.
Yeah, well, Carol, first of all, I think some of the things that were just said, that the Army has not lowered the standards. You use the term waiver, and that's a critically important term to use, because when I recruit, God bless all the recruiters that are out there in the shopping malls trying to get young men and women into our various services, when they look at the recruits, they ask them to pass several tests, and there are standards that they have to meet. Some of the standards, if a recruit comes in, as General Snow said a minute ago, who has smoked marijuana in the past, they will look at that and take a look at potentially waivering the standards. Who conducts that waiver ability was pushed up to the Department of the Army level a few years ago when the suicide rate went up. There was a one-star general in charge of approving those waivers. What General Snow asked for is a two-star general. Hey, allow me to do that. I have a better feel for what we're bringing into the force. Let me put the waivers on the soldiers that are coming into the service, and the Army allowed him to do that. So the USA Today article, a very good article, but it did mischaracterize. There is not a lowering of standards. They are not automatically allowing all these people in. And I'll be with you, Carol, to be honest with you. In 2009, I was commander of basic training across the country. And it was a period of time when the surge in both Iraq and Afghanistan was full bore. There were a lot of people, folks like Private Bergdahl and others, that were allowed in to fight because we needed the force. That's not what's happening today. What's happening today is we are growing the Army. Last year's requirement was 69,000 soldiers, new soldiers going into basic training. This year, it's 80,000. Yeah, that's an increase. Is it tough to make? Absolutely. But I got to tell you, those recruiters out there under General Snow are meeting standards and making sure that anyone that does get a waiver is for the right reason.
So let me pose this to Admiral Kirby. General Snow told me that the difficulty in recruiting 80,000 by 2018 is an 8 or a 9. I thought at first he was going to say a 10 because, you know, there are incentives in love of country and serving your country, and those are, I don't know, those are, I guess what I'm trying to say, there are so many things going against the Army when it comes to recruits. Why would you want to serve our country today?
Well, so there's a lot there, Carol. I mean, the Army, like the other services, offer individuals the opportunity to learn skills, to lead large and small groups, and to serve their country, to do something a little bit bigger than just themselves. And there's amazing opportunities inside the military. Also, educational benefits, health benefits. There's a lot to look at from a practical perspective, aside from the patriotic perspective of joining the military. But when I heard General Snow tell you it's an 8 or a 9, what I heard in that was what I've heard from recruiters from other services too, that the economy's doing really well. So we're competing against a strong economy, and obesity, particularly in young men and women in this country, is a real problem, and there are, as General Hertling said, very strict standards about coming in. So they have to hew to those standards, which means that and since it's an all-volunteer force, you have to get people interested to come in, and they have to meet those standards. And so with an economy that's strong, obesity the way it is, as well as other challenges out there, you can understand why recruiters still have a pretty rough road ahead.
Well, that's why I'm wondering, is 80,000 too large a number? Is that unrealistic?
Well, I'd let the Army speak to their recruiting goals. I think my experience has been they're pretty smart about setting them, and you know, a goal is a goal. You want it to be a bit of a stretch. You don't want to, you know, especially when now they are trying to grow the Army over time in a responsible way. As General Hertling said before, when we suffered this issue, it was because we were surging troops in Iraq and Afghanistan. There was a much more urgent need. Now the Army's trying to grow out because it got too small, and they're trying to grow out in a responsible way. So yes, look, it's going to be a challenge for them, but I don't know that I wouldn't call this you know, irrational in terms of an end goal.
Gotcha. So Melissa, you talk to a lot of veterans. Do they feel the right kinds of people are being recruited?
You know, with less than 1% of us serving in Iraq, Afghanistan, and other places abroad, we're concerned that the military is taking care of those folks when they get home. IAVA continues to have their back. We're also concerned that women are not stepping up to serve. Women like myself, we recently launched a women's campaign called She Who Born the Battle, where we want to ensure that it's a welcoming environment, especially in light of recent days when we're looking at sexual assault charges against many. We recently signed on to the Military Justice Improvement Act introduced by Senator Gillibrand this week, where we want to ensure that survivors of military sexual assault receive the justice that they deserve. And so we want to ensure that the civilian-military divide, that gap is bridged, and we want to ensure that the right type of people are coming into the force, and then once they're in the force, that they're taken care of. And that's where IAVA steps in to ensure that those benefits are preserved for folks.
So General Hertling, you know, I've heard this, that, you know, the Army reflects society, right? It's going to have problems with certain people within the Army because we have problems with certain people in the world. I guess it's a matter of, you know, how you deal with those problems within the military, because we do hear stories about people who have committed crimes while serving in the military.
Well, yeah, but the percentage, Carol, what I would say, having served in the military for 38 years, the percentage of, let's just say, poor individuals, in my view, is a lot less in the military than what I've seen in the private sector. Your comment before to Admiral Kirby about why would someone want to serve, I got to tell you, maybe your next story should be about basic training. Go down there, talk to some of those young men and women who were in basic training units in any of the services and find out, because I used to make a habit of asking soldiers, why did you join the Army? Got some unbelievable responses that shocked me. You know, the easy ones are, oh, my dad did, or my uncle did, or my mom did, and now I want to serve. But there were some other ones that would just bring tears to your eyes in terms of how they want to pay back and how they want to be selfless. These young men, and the Army is now about 500,000 strong on the active force, are unbelievably fantastic representation of the society. And you're right. And that brings up another very good point. They do represent the entire nation in all races, colors, creeds, religions, and sexual orientation. And I think we need to keep it that way as well, because they fight for America, so they should represent America as they're fighting for them.
Admiral Kirby, General Snow brought up something to me that I just want to get into a little bit. He says that most people don't know anyone who served in the military now, and most young people, you know, they don't know anyone who served. Like, they don't know about World War II or the Vietnam War or Korea, right? They just know about recent conflicts that seem to go on forever. He says that is a real problem when it comes to recruitment, because how do you explain?
Right. There is, to the previous point, about a serious and widening civil-military gap in this country. And I saw a recent poll where a majority of business owners in this country say that they may know somebody who served, but they don't really know them well, and they don't really understand military service. And then to the point about the 1%, it's true, 1% of the population serves on active duty today. But what worries me, Carol, is it seems to be the same 1% over and over again, generation after generation. To General Hertling's point, I mean, 81%, so according to a recent survey I saw, about 81% of active duty members today have a family member who also served, and therefore influenced their decision. My grandfather was on a battleship in World War I. My father served aboard a carrier in the 1950s. I mean, it's a family business. My son's in the Navy now. My daughter married a naval officer. And that really, that insulated nature of the military is not helping us bridge the gap with the American people. I do think that there is a sea of goodwill out there. I think there's lots of people and organizations, IAVA is one of them, that wants to make those connections and do a better job. And I also think we veterans, particularly veterans, but also active duty members, have a responsibility also to get out there and connect with the American people and to do a better job at closing those gaps.
Yeah, and that's exactly what General Snow is trying to do. And I'll pose that question to you, Melissa. He wants veterans to get out there and talk about how great it is to serve this country and how many people who serve in the military never see the things while serving our country.
Right, absolutely. And at IAVA, we've spoken with the various heads of recruiting commands like General Snow, General Hammersack over at the Air Force, and we're partnering with them to ensure that these stories of veterans are told. I myself come from a military family. My grandfather was killed in action in World War II. My father served in Vietnam. I served in Iraq. And We greatly understand those pressures of war, but we also understand the wonderful benefits and also just the rich experiences that you receive while you serve on active duty or in the Guard and Reserve. And it's IAVA's mission to ensure that we connect veterans with the military, veterans with the civilian population, to ensure that we bring new folks into the fold. It can't just be the 1% who continue to sign up. It can't just be those who are military legacy who continue to sign up. The entire nation should understand the battle and the burdens that we face when we face war.
You know, Carol, if I can add just one more thing, and I think it's critical, because I'm stuck on your question about why would someone want to serve. John mentioned the part about learning new skills, building teams, learning something different in a very unique environment. What I would say is America needs the military for several reasons. Number one, it teaches values, and it teaches leadership. And more than any other time in our history today, we need individuals who will portray good values and an ability to lead other people. And I just talked to a group of individuals about this last night as an outreach program to say this is what the military did. And most of these businesses I talked to didn't understand how much we focus on those kind of things, the values and the leadership piece, which corporations are craving for.
Yeah, and I was so impressed with that new class of recruits that took the oath, you know, out in Paris, California. So thank you for a great conversation, all of you, Lieutenant General Mark Hertling, Admiral John Kirby, and Captain Melissa Bryant. I'll be right back.